Ladies and gentlemen, Krzysztof the Polish Geek, and welcome to another video game review. And we're going to talk about Lies of P, because this game is magnificent. Lies of P is such a phenomenal game, and this is such a phenomenal Souls-like game, and unlike other Souls-like games like Nioh or Salt and Sanctuary, this game totally feels like it is very much a FromSoftware game. And as I play this masterpiece, I constantly have to remind myself that this is actually not made by FromSoftware, but this studio called Neovis. But the game is just so awesome. And honestly, if it actually was FromSoftware, it would very much compete for the top spot together with Elden Ring and Dark Souls 3. That's how really amazing this game is. And as a surprise, I'm to say it, I think it dethroned Baldur's Gate 3 and Legends of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom as Game of the Year for me. Because before that I was wondering which one would be Game of the Year, Baldur's Gate 3, Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. But again, we have a winner! So let's talk about how really awesome Lies of P is. The art and graphics in this game are so beautiful and gorgeous and detailed. I love how roads and alleys in the city of Krat look, as well as the city's architecture and the lights, the corridor and the room in the Hotel Krat. And I also love the look and design of characters. I think it's simply excellent. The art style of this game is wonderful and beautiful, and I love all the attention to detail and the immersive feeling I get when I look and play this game. I said a couple of times how I think FromSoftware should do a new theme. As much as I love medieval fantasy like Dark Souls and Elden Ring, I thought because those games already did it, it was time for a new theme. Like Bloodborne was Gothic horror, and Sekiro was feudal Japan. So I thought a next game should do a new theme, and Lies of P is basically my dream come true way quicker than I expected, and I constantly have to remind myself that this is actually not a FromSoftware game. Yet, if it was FromSoftware, it would totally be one of my favorite ones. This time the take is so unique because it's now a rendition of a Pinocchio story. Last year we got Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio set in fascist Italy, and now we got this magnificent game, although we moved from Italy to France, which I think works great. The setting in this game is fantastic. I really love the elegant city of Krat. I really love the set designs in the city, the whole look of it, the overall atmosphere, and it strongly gives me the vibes of Paris, which it is based on Paris, actually. This city is so wonderful that you both feel like you're playing a Pinocchio game and a Souls-like game, something that not many people could probably make work. But this game just makes it work perfectly. The alleys and the architecture of the city is simply beautiful and so immersive, and the city has so many things in European cities, like an opera, for example. Like most other Souls-like games, there are plenty of shortcuts that you can uncover as you play the game. And I think this game actually does shortcuts probably better than any FromSoftware game. And instead of Roundtable Hold, Firelink Shrine, or Hunter's Dream, this game has Hotel Krat, and I really love this location so much. This is a place where you can talk to NPCs, level up, buy some upgrades, and there is also a skill tree, something that FromSoftware games didn't have, but it's a very welcome addition. The character who levels you up is obviously the Blue Fairy, which makes perfect sense considering this is Pinocchio game. Hotel Krat is so beautifully designed, and it's also so relaxing, and the music is great, and I wish I could actually spend the night there. Instead of bonfires, or sights of grace, or lamps, this game has stargazers, which fit wonderfully with the game's setting. Plus, they're actually a reference to Disney's When You Wish Upon a Star. Fitting, considering that song is iconic in Disney's Pinocchio. And there are plenty other beautiful, amazing locations. I love that there is a huge variety in them, like there should be in Soulslike game. There is, for example, Saint Frangelico Cathedral, which is so beautiful and gives me vibes of various European Catholic churches, or the areas right outside of city, like a swamp, for example. Still, what makes it even all better, because technically, those areas are actually very much interconnected with City of Krat, and yet they all feel so unique, diverse, and interesting. In general, I think the world is wonderfully interconnected here. People always say how they love how the first Dark Souls is so interconnected, while Dark Souls 3 not so much. And although I personally always prefer the more linear structure of Dark Souls 3, I actually really love the way the world is interconnected here in Lies of P. It somehow both feels like you're on a journey while still very much the world being interconnected. And the game is very linear in contrast to open world Elden Ring. And I think this is wonderful. Being linear fits much better for this game. Sometimes linearity works very much in the game's favor, and this is a very perfect example. The music is fantastic. Most FromSoftware games have magnificent music, but this game seems to go above and beyond with its music. It so perfectly matches the atmosphere of the game. Like music in Hotel Krat feels like some sort of classical music, which makes perfect sense. This is very much the type of music you'd likely expect in the time period the music is based on, and I'm also very much love classical music. And there is also beautiful church organ music in Saint Frangelico Cathedral, and I adore church organ music too. And there is so much more great music in this game, and they all perfectly match the areas of their settings. Of course, like you'd expect from a Souls-like game, this game is very difficult. The combat is most similar to Bloodborne, Dark Souls 3, and Elden Ring in that it is very fast and requires lots of aggression. It does use some elements from Sekiro though. In Dark Souls 3 and Elden Ring, I'll just use all my aggressive attacks on enemies. And while I do it here in Lies of P most of the time too, I also can't say things are quite that simple here. The combat most certainly is very fast, and being aggressive is very helpful, but sometimes it can also be helpful to dodge more and use strategies or enemies. Like for example, Sekiro put huge emphasis on time guards. And here in Lies of P, time guards are also very helpful, even though I've never been particularly good at time guards outside of Sekiro. It doesn't use time guards to the extent of Sekiro, but still. That said, when I can just be aggressive, that is certainly what I'm doing, because this is what I'm really best in games like that. And while the game has leveling system from FromSoftware games, something new has been added, a skill tree. I've already been talking about it actually already, and I really like that. And another thing that was added, and that's really one of my favorite things, especially that it's very consistent with the story and themes of Pinocchio, and that's the system of telling lies versus telling the truths. And it makes perfect sense, since as I just said, it is a Pinocchio game, and over the course of the game, characters ask you a question, and you have a choice to either lie or tell the truth. Sometimes lying might be what they want to hear, and sometimes the truth will actually make them feel better. Some criticism of this game that I see online is that this game has very bland enemy design, but I couldn't disagree more. Yes, most enemies in this game are puppets for sure, and there maybe isn't a huge diversity of enemies like there is in Dark Souls or Bloodborne, but who cares? Enemies in this game perfectly fit with the game's story and themes. It makes perfect sense to me that vast majority of enemies in this game here are puppets. And they still have very diverse designs. And plus, there aren't only puppets for enemies in this game. There are also like carcass monsters, for example, and they for sure have pretty cool designs. Boss battles are epic. They are pretty difficult like you'd expect in a game like that, but practice makes perfect. Those bosses are perfect examples of bosses that you're supposed to lose to a couple of times, learn their moveset, and continue fighting until you come out on top. Many bosses even have two phases, which can be tiring, but it's also so rewarding once you do finally beat the boss. In Elden Ring or Dark Souls or Bloodborne, there were several bosses that I felt like were kind of unfair. Like in Elden Ring, while there were plenty of amazing bosses, I also felt like there were some bosses that I felt like I was lucky to have finally defeated them and was relieved. But here I can say every single boss was well balanced, and when I lost to the boss, I felt like I was the one that made the mistake and not the boss was unfair. And their physical designs are also very awesome. I've always been saying that FromSoftware literally comes with most amazing and most scary physical designs for their bosses. And I say, even though Lies of P is not FromSoftware, I say like some of their boss battles are, if the game was FromSoftware, those would literally be some of the most amazing and scary and twisted designs they ever came up with. Very much comparable to the likes of Rykard, Lord of Blasphemy, Aldrich, the Devourer of the Gods, Demon of Hatred, or Gaping Dragon. I will also talk a little about the game's story. Most FromSoftware video games certainly have a story, a backstory at least, but this game, kind of like Sekiro, has a far more active story. To put it simply, Elden Ring and Dark Souls trilogy and Bloodborne just threw you into the world and would leave everything for you to piece together. Elden Ring and all three Dark Souls games were very much about the lore. Not saying this game doesn't have a lore, it sure does, and whenever you're in an area or pick up an item, you very much learn some interesting backstory about either that area or an item, but also this game has also very clear narrative, and a really amazing narrative. It is a Pinocchio story, and I really adore that adult dark rendition of Pinocchio. Because it's a Pinocchio story, so it also uses philosophical themes from the original Pinocchio story, like what it means to actually be human, be a good person, help others, listen to your conscience. I love those themes. Those are in general some of the themes I generally love discussing and pondering. And besides, the story also has some unexpected twists and turns. And it's also filled with so many references to the original Carlo Collodi book. And they don't feel forced, they make perfect sense in the context of the game. And not just Carlo Collodi book. In general, the game makes various references to various different Pinocchio adaptations. Finally, I want to talk about what makes a Soulslike game a truly good Soulslike game. Until this magnificent masterpiece, nobody could think a Soulslike game from any other studio other than FromSoftware, of course, could ever work. Sure, we had Nioh 1 and 2, Salt and Sanctuary, and some others which tried to recapture the magic, yet, while by all means pretty good games, they just kind of lacked the FromSoftware magic. Lies of P not only shines with same magic, it's now one of my favorite Souls-like games ever now, together with Elden Ring and Dark Souls 3. But that's a good question. What exactly makes a truly good Souls-like game? And this is something that I am by no means an expert, and I think there are YouTubers out there who could give a far better explanation for it than me. I will try my very best. I still think FromSoftware games have most amazing enemy designs, engaging and deep rich lore, well designed and immersive environments, bonfires, or sites of grace, lamps, or stargazers, whatever, places where you can take a break and relax, and enemies respawning after you rest the Sight of Grace or Stargazer, and of course very well balanced difficulty, cause I'm the type of person that rages very often. I have a confession, there are some video games where I tend to just pick easy difficulty. Yet, Souls-like well-balanced difficulty just keeps me coming back, and I grew to join the crowd that very much opposes adding easy level difficulty. Still, it feels like I only really scratched the surface of what characterizes a really good quality Souls-like game that, until Lies of P, we all probably felt only FromSoftware could truly capture. Let's illustrate though. Gameplay-wise, Nioh has far more in common with Dark Souls and Bloodborne, and Sekiro had always had much less. Yet, Sekiro had this very precise samurai combat and it was all skill, no leveling up. Yet, me and most people could say Sekiro was very much filled with FromSoftware magic, and Nioh, while again a pretty good game, not so much. Sekiro was actually always my third favorite FromSoftware game, and now fourth overall Souls-like game since Lies of P. I love much more now. The best and simplest way I could describe FromSoftware magic is magnificent game that's difficult, but its magic has you under spell, and you just have to beat the game and later come back. Although, then again, this is probably a very, very broad description, but that's, I guess, my description. Lies of P is a phenomenal masterpiece, and as I'm still so shocked about it, but this game literally dethroned both Baldur's Gate 3 and Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, and it's by far my game of the year, which says a lot considering the overall quantity of awesome games this year we got. And overall, this decade also seems very much to be awesome for Pinocchio. Last year we got Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio, which is still one of my favorite animated movies of all time, and possibly still my favorite movie of this decade. And now this year we got this magnificent video game masterpiece. And even though this is not a FromSoftware game, you can't really tell when you play it. Like when you play this game, you totally forget this is not a FromSoftware game, because if it was FromSoftware, it would by far be one of their best video games and compete with Elden Ring and Dark Souls 3 as best FromSoftware game. And you know what else? What is best? We are getting a sequel and a DLC. Although for now I'm much more excited for a DLC because the sequel won't likely be out in years to come, but we already have an image of the DLC, and doesn't this already look awesome? Some nautical adventures on the sea or the ocean, we'll see, but that image on the ship alone already gets me very hyped for the DLC. But Lies of P is a masterpiece and easily game of the year for me, which again says a lot considering the quantity of awesome video games we got this year. And thank you for checking out this video. Press the like button, please subscribe this channel, and I will talk to you, ladies and gentlemen, in another video. Talk to you later, bye!